Fantastic. Shane, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
We're doing great. We can't see you, but we can hear you. That's the most important
All
thing.
right, I'm
That's
on a
the
different
most.
computer.
On a
Can't see
different.
me.
Well, you
That's
sound
okay.
good. We were talking about this earlier before you jumped on. First off, congratulations! You're fresh off the news of game day. That ought to put you in a good mood. That's a great opportunity. That combined with that matchup.
Yeah, going to be an amazing environment up in Charlotte that night, and certainly will be electric up there. Looking forward to it. Got a lot of work to do before then, but certainly to have college game day there and the eyes of college football on us will be really awesome.
We we had you on 2 years ago. It's right around the 2 year anniversary when we first had you on the show, and I think about the uncertainness then. Right? I mean, the job was open for a reason. The program was not exactly in great shape. You take the job. As you know, there are some people that took some shots about lack of experience, what have you, and you think about what you've accomplished since then. How do you think this program is now looked upon? Because what I've noticed, a lot of the people that were your biggest critics over the hire, they are now pretty complimentary of the job you're doing, and all of a sudden they're a Shane Beamer fan. So how is the perception, do you believe, of everything that you've got going on in Columbia now versus 2 years ago?
There we go.
There you are. Oh, you look fantastic.
Yeah, sorry, I
Right.
had technical difficulties on one
All
computer.
good.
Had to find another computer here in our building that works. I think perceptions changed. Obviously, when you've had some success, it changes. But I also realize you're only as good as your most recent game, only as good as your most recent season. So that's part of it. But I get it. You know, I wasn't the quote unquote hot name when I got hired. I wasn't some hot shot coordinator on the offensive side of the ball or defensive side of the ball, but we've been able to come in and have, some success and accomplish a lot of firsts in our first two seasons. And certainly that changes a lot of things as well. But, all we're worried about is what's next and know that we've made some strides, but we got a lot of work to do and continuing to just try and move this program forward and get a little better each day.
I think of you, one thing I've noticed about you as the head coach, and you and I go back a ways when you were an assistant at South Carolina, and everybody knows you as a great, nice guy, charming, fun to be around. But there's a little bit of a chip, and I think, quite frankly, that job requires that. There's been a history of South Carolina, as we've talked about, that's always been kind of in the middle. And if you want to get to that next level, you kind of need to change the perception a little bit. And you've gotten a little bit spicy with some opponents and media members or whatnot. Is that something you feel like you kind of have to have in that job?
Good question. I don't know, have to have. I think a lot of it's probably just, my personality. I'm always going to tell our players and coaches and staff, I'm always going to do what's best for the South Carolina football program. And that entails defending this program when needed. And, I get it. Criticism is a part of the job. I'm not sitting here saying that I'm sensitive to things being said and stuff like that when it's fair or when it's truthful, but anytime that there's a perceived or a shot or a criticism that I think is unwarranted or something that I feel like I need to defend our program, I will. And certainly, I'm not going to lie, we've played the disrespect card some in my last in our two seasons here, going into certain games and things like that as well. So I think each team is different. I think each week is different, kind of what your team needs to hear and whatnot. But certainly everything's out there from a media standpoint. So I know that our players are hearing and seeing everything. And I also realize that I'm, the voice of the program in so many ways as well. So just, it's my personality. I've got a chip on my shoulder as an assistant coach coming up through the ranks and even now as a head coach because of my last name in a lot of ways. And, just try and, whatever it takes to fuel your team, I try and find those ways and be creative with it.
You realize
people forget you were a long snapper. I mean, long snappers, I've seen my share of long snappers, man. They have to play with an edge, man. So that's, I just wanted to add that in. So.
Appreciate that.
What did you weigh as a long snapper?
Oh man, 100 and about what I am right now, about 100 and I think the highest I ever got at Virginia Tech was like 195.
Okay.
I came in fresh out of high school. I was 168 pounds when I got to college, and then about 30 pounds later is when I finished up. But it was I was athletic enough, Mike and JC, where I could snap and not get hit, if people tried to. And then I wouldn't say that I was a burner, but I was faster than your typical 270-pound long snapper, so I could get downfield and may not make the tackle, but I could at least get downfield and get in the punt returner's way until everybody else got there to make the tackle.
There we go. It's that scrappiness that you still bring to the table to this day. You mentioned the disrespect card. You realize when you beat up on a top 10 Tennessee team, it's a little harder to play that card now, right? Because I mean that game, and a lot of people watched that game that had no, they're not fans of either team, but because of the time it was on, because of the other games on at that time, which from what I remember, there weren't a whole lot of other marquee games. That got a lot of eyeballs on it. You guys got a lot of attention, and clearly that was a landmark win for you and the program. I'm curious, was there anything in the coaches' meetings and the practices that week leading up to that game where you said, yeah, I really like our chances to put on just a hell of a performance?
Yeah, I really would say, I don't know if there was one moment. It sounds crazy saying this, really felt good about it all week. You go back to the season before in Knoxville, and we got off to a horrendous start up there in Knoxville, my first season here at Carolina. So after that game, being able to go back and talk as a staff about how we would, handle their tempo and things better to start the game the following season. And we weren't great, don't get me wrong. We still gave up whatever it was, 38 points to them that night. But, felt good about what we were doing from a schematic standpoint. I've said it before, but, we practice on Sunday evenings after games. And after that performance against Florida on that Saturday night, we came back and had a unbelievable practice 24 hours later back here in Columbia. And I walked off the field that night saying, okay, not necessarily that we're going to win like this, but felt good about just the mindset of our players going into that week. And then really for us, Mike, it was just understanding the way that Tennessee plays defense, the way that we play defense. There's just going to be a lot of just one-on-ones all across the field versus our receivers and tight ends and running backs versus theirs and vice versa. And we just challenged our guys all week. We got to win them. And just turned it into a competition. It's a core value of this program. So we just kind of turned it into a 60-minute competitive one-on-one plays. And certainly when you've got national television, sold-out stadium, last game of the year, senior night, I mean, we didn't have to worry about getting our players up. And that goes back to the type of people we have in our program. And then also I'll say this too. I mean, we were terrible against Florida, don't get me wrong. But I knew – that was a game that just kind of got away from us in a lot of ways. And I knew we weren't that bad, if you will, from what we played. There were some other circumstances in that game, just some things that happened throughout the week and during the game. It just kind of got out of whack, and felt good about the opportunity. What a great team Tennessee was last season. So I knew it would be a huge challenge for us, but I felt good all week that our guys would go out there and compete and perform really well.
What did that game mean, not only for the rest of that season, but turning it forward to this year for the confidence of one Spencer Rattler?
I think a lot. It was, and I've said this, to you guys in the media before. I mean, Spencer will be the first to tell you statistically and all that wasn't what he maybe wanted going into that Tennessee game. But let's not act like he had just had a horrendous season up to that point. He had done a lot of good things and led us to some great wins. But when you go out and just, turn it loose and play free, which he did that night, and allow his weapons to go make plays and for him to perform, it was great confidence. And then to go on the road the next week in front of a hostile crowd up at Clemson and go down 14-0, and then for us to come back and win that game, I think it did was great for one, his confidence, but two, just the whole team's confidence that we can win these games against great teams at home. We can go on the road in hostile environments and win those games as well. So it's a lot to build up on, and every year is different, but we got a lot of key guys back, Spencer being one of them, that had some great moments down the stretch last year. Confident they'll build on those.
Speaking of that Clemson game, so you look at your tenure at South Carolina, with the exception of the game at East Carolina in Game 2, where you guys got behind and came back, games kind of tended to turn out sort of the way they started for the most part. If I'm missing one, forgive me.
Auburn, we were down 14-0 to Auburn.
Okay, that's my bad on that one. But
that's all right.
But that Clemson game, everything, it was one of those games. I've seen a lot of Carolina Clemson games through the years where everything that could go wrong did go wrong early, and that crowd starts getting into it, and it's just like it's a team that had won 10 straight. How important was that for everybody on the team, in the organization, just confidence-wise, to kind of reinforce the resilience that you guys had?
That was awesome, JC.
So
it really
resilient.
was.
Yeah.
Awesome. And I don't think people maybe realize what a big deal it was to, be on the road in a hostile environment. You throw a pick six, we're down 14-0. I mentioned it in Nashville last week at Media Day. Like, it's human nature, and it would have been very easy for our players to say, well, we had that great night last week against Tennessee and Columbia. We'll always have that game. Today's just not our day. But that's what I was so proud of as a head coach, is our guys didn't flinch up at Clemson. Go down 14-0, crowd's going crazy, doesn't look good, but nobody panicked and just kept playing and kept battling back. So from that standpoint, the mental toughness that you got to have, the physical toughness you got to have to win on the road against a team that won their conference championship the next week. That was really big step for our guys, as was my second game ever as the head coach here, going on the road in Greenville and being down 14-0 early in my tenure. I mean, that's one that we won 6 games that season and in the regular season, and if we don't win that one, who knows what happens after that. So that was a great win too up in Greenville 2 years ago when our guys showed kind of the same resolve.
What's the text count on your phone after the Clemson game? Is that a new high?
Yeah, well, not new high, because the new high was 7 days earlier, Mike.
Right.
After the Tennessee game, because you're right, there's a lot of people that watched the Tennessee game because of when it was, and then obviously a ton. But I think both those games, it was somewhere, when you count from Saturday when you walk off the field and you look at your phone in the locker room and everything's done, from that point all the way until probably the next morning when I woke up, both those weeks was anywhere from about 250 to about 350, somewhere in there, all total.
Those are people you know. Now, if Gamecock Nation had your cell number, and we're going to give it out at the end of this interview. No, I'm just kidding. If they had it, I think that'd be the new high by far, because
there's no question. That's one of those games you don't mind looking at the mentions and the comments on Twitter and things like that after a game like that. That one's okay, but certainly the cell phone. It was people I know, and it's pretty cool too. You just realize the magnitude of what that game went, because hearing from so many people that maybe you hadn't heard from in a few years and things like that watched the game and just wanted to reach out, whether it be other colleagues or other places that I've coached, things like that. So that was pretty cool and was definitely, made those weekends even more enjoyable.
Yeah. So this year's team, you got a lot of guys coming back, but you got a lot of young, talented guys that are going to provide the depth special teams play on this football team. What are your thoughts on that? And it's sometimes people they'll say, well, we're young or whatever, but then there's also been, I think Clemson a few years ago was the youngest team in the country and won the national championship when you did all the stats and stuff. What can you say about being young but being talented this year with your roster?
Yeah, no, that's exactly what it is. We've, we got a core group of guys that are veteran players returning, which we're excited about. But, depth-wise, we're just not where we need to be quite yet. So because of that, we're going to have to rely on true freshmen. And I mean, legitimately, you look at every single position, we're probably going to have a true freshman in the two deep that's going to play in game one against North Carolina. And that's exciting. Certainly the youth, when you're playing like guys who their last game was in high school, and then their very next game is going to be on national television against a ranked North Carolina team. Certainly, it's probably not the ideal scenario, maybe, but these guys are talented guys, and it really excites me for the future. The way that we've recruited already and brought these players into the program. And then the way that players are, the way that recruiting is going, and the guys that we're going to continue to bring into the program. Nobody wants to sit around and wait a year or two to play. If you're bringing in the right guys, you want to play them and get them out there as quick as possible as well. So that's what we're going to do. And this, JC. So many of those guys, they graduate high school early now, so it's not like the old days where they show up on campus in July. And then 3 weeks later, they start practice. All of them have been here all summer since Memorial Day, really, back in May. And then the majority of them were here in January and went through spring practice. So that's good. They got that experience, and it's not like totally new. And then the ones that did get here Memorial Day weekend, the NCAA allows us to do more with our players in the summertime. So we're able to meet with them and get out on the field with them for a little bit. And it's not like they're just completely thrown to the wolves when we start practice in August next week.
One of those guys, actually, I kind of thought, I told somebody the other day, like I said, he did this last year, and then I remembered he's a freshman. Pup Howard, the linebacker, was with you guys at bowl practice. Talk about him a little bit, because he's a very interesting guy to me, because he's a 250-pound freshman linebacker that seems like a veteran and hadn't played a snap. So
yeah, no, you're exactly right. I make the same mistake some too, JC. Like I'll see him, and it's like he's been here for a year or two, and it feels like it because he was here so much during recruiting, and then he went to the bowl game with us and bowl practices, and was here for spring practice. Now, first of all, what a great young man. I mean, he's got an unbelievable personality and hard worker. Football is very, very important to him, and he's done an amazing job since he got here of, changing his body and getting bigger and stronger. He looks different. He already looked great when we signed him. He looks different already. And football is just very important to him. So we're excited. He's certainly going to be in the mix at the linebacker position. We're excited about that room. And he's a guy that we're certainly really excited about at that position as well. He loves football. Every time you see him, he's running around with, one of our other freshmen that, are passionate about football also, and excited that he's here with us.
Where does the offensive line stand right now?
Work in progress, really trying to do a great job of we've done this all along, Mike, just cross-training guys and trying to have different guys that can play different positions where you don't just say this guy's a tackle, this guy's a guard, and this guy's a center. We've got flexibility. And I was literally just meeting with Lonnie Teasley and Greg Atkins about that this morning in Lonnie's office, just talking about, the offensive line, like where it is right now, where we think it'll be in 4 weeks as we get ready for North Carolina, where we think it'll go as young guys develop and we go throughout the season, kind of contingency things. If something were to happen to this guy, what would we do? All those different scenarios. So we've got a good group. When I talk about those young players, we've got some really good young freshmen on that offensive line that we're excited about, that we're going to do everything that we can to get ready to play as soon as possible. Got some great returners that have played a lot of football here for us that are returning. And then, we've brought in some transfers that we think will help us this year as well. So it's a lot of unknowns, just because there's a lot of guys that haven't played a football game here at South Carolina that we're counting on this season. But it is a talented group that has some good veteran leadership. Even though we lost 3 senior starters, it's got some good veteran leadership returning, and then a lot of guys that can do different things. I mean, if you watch the spring game, you saw Rashawn Lee play center, and at the end of the game, he was out there playing offensive tackle. And we got a lot of guys like that can do different things, and we'll have to continue to.
You mentioned transfers. Nene Manziel, an in-state kid that came in from Mercer, and Jackson Hughes from Charlotte. technically walk-on guys. I've heard a lot of good things just kind of through the grapevine about those guys. Do you think those guys will kind of contribute and get in the mix?
Yeah, I do. Those are two guys when I met with Lonnie and Greg this morning, whose names certainly came up as guys that have been really impactful guys to our program already. You know, they're both smart, they're both tough, they're athletic, got some position flexibility. So certainly when we brought those guys in our minds, we weren't getting just some guy transferring from another school and walking on. I mean, we felt like we got scholarship caliber players to come in here and help on the offensive line, and they've been awesome and really have been impressed with their maturity. And that's what you would expect coming from a program where they've already played some college football and they've been out of high school for a couple of years, and really good guys, and they've made that offensive line room better already.
Shane, one of the things I think we all take for granted is that regardless of who the names are going to be out there on special teams, that it's going to be really good under your leadership. This went on for years with your dad's teams, and I've always wanted to ask you, is this simply a matter, because you only have so many hours during the week to dedicate to things in practice, is it a matter of you dedicate more practice time to it than your average football program, your average football coaching staff? Is it something that you see in film the week leading up to the game? I mean, the easy answer is it's a combination of both, but what is it that truly puts it over the top for you and your teams, just like it did for your dad's teams at Virginia Tech?
Yeah, great question. I don't want to give you the easy answer, but it's a combination of both.
Yeah.
Like you said, no, it really is. I think we do put more time into it than other places I've been. I mean, my dad was a special teams guy, and we spend more time on special teams here than we did at Virginia Tech, and more than what we did when I was at Oklahoma. And we spent a lot of time on it at those programs, don't get me wrong. So we do invest a lot of time in it. I think that's one thing. Number two, when the head coach is heavily involved, which I am, it makes a difference. There's a lot of people that invest time on special teams. They give time to it in practice and meetings, but you can devote a whole lot of time to it. But if the head coach is not in the meetings, and when special teams is taking place during practice, the head coach is over there working with the defensive backs or throwing routes with the quarterbacks and receivers, it's going to lose a little bit of importance within the team. I'm in every single meeting, heavily involved with it. I'm heavily involved with everything that we're doing on the field. So I do think that makes a difference. I saw that firsthand with my dad. I mean, my dad literally ran every special teams meeting at Virginia Tech except for, the kickoff return unit for his entire career. And then I do believe the fact that we have a special teams coordinator in Pete Limbo that doesn't coach another position. He's able to devote all of his time to special teams during the week when you're game planning, but then also on the practice field, because it's tough when you're doing both. When I was at Georgia, you're coaching tight ends, so you're involved in the offensive meetings. You're involved, with getting your own players ready to play, but then you're also responsible for coming up with a game plan and practice organization for an entire special teams unit, and it's tough to do both. So Pete's able to devote all of his time to special teams and also, coach the coaches, if you will, as well, organizational meetings, because all of our coaches are involved in special teams, and Pete's able to run those meetings and get those guys up to speed on what we're doing as well. So it's a combination of everything, and it helps to have good players as well. And we've had some really good, special teams players and core guys and kickers, specialists, all that.
No doubt about it. Helps win you some games. North Carolina, week 1, had a chance to see them and call their spring game. There's no question Drake May can make some throws that 90-something% of college quarterbacks can't make. He is special. What about the matchup do you like in terms of, look, there's a lot of teams that, quite frankly, are going to start off with a cupcake in week 1. And I imagine you've got the guys' attention a little extra when you've got a challenging game in week 1. Is that part of the appeal of scheduling something like this?
Yeah, no question. I saw it. My dad, when he was at Virginia Tech, he had a lot of high-profile openers. One year they opened up with, Reggie Bush and Southern Cal. up in Washington, D.C. One year they opened up with Boise State up in Washington, D.C. Opened up one year with Georgia Tech, a key ACC Coastal Division matchup on Labor Day night, or Sunday night, whatever it was. So I think anytime you open up with a team like that, it certainly increases the excitement and urgency throughout the summer, but then preseason camp especially. You're always excited about game ones, don't get me wrong, but when you're already excited about game one, but then you add the fact that you're playing a really, really talented, nationally ranked opponent on national television, College game day, all that, it couldn't be better. You can certainly it's easy to remind the guys during like the dog days of preseason camp of, hey, don't forget what's coming here in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it might be. So I like that part of it. It's certainly you're always excited to start the season, but certainly it ramps up the excitement level when you're opening up with a team like that.
I know everybody is pumped about it. Before we let you go, I'm going to have a little fun with you, okay? Little rapid fire with you. We've talked a whole lot of ball here. We've gotten very serious. There's still a very big fun side to Shane Beamer. I mean, you have almost like a kid-like enthusiasm about you on the sideline, which I think is obviously very appealing to young men in recruiting, I would think. And that kind of was on full display at the press conferences. You're very rapidly moving first team all SEC media days press conference because you've got the juice, man. I mean, a lot of coaches, quite frankly, just they don't look like they want to be there. I think you use it as an opportunity. So let's put some of that to work here. Hard-hitting questions. Favorite show as a kid growing up? What's Shane Beamer watching?
Wonder Years.
Oh, classic. Winnie Cooper.
Yeah, probably Wonder Years. Like little. I was a big like Fraggle Rock He-Man guy. little. And then as I got a little bit older, I'd say probably Wonder Years.
Wonder Years, yeah. Paul Pfeiffer, very underrated actor. Favorite show as an adult? What's when you're not breaking down film all the time, you had to binge on something maybe. You got a little Sopranos, a little Breaking Bad. What's Shane watching?
It's terrible to say. I really don't watch a ton of it. But like when I'm at home, texting recruits, talking to recruits, hanging out with my family, watching a sporting event. Mm-hmm. Show-wise, though, like the only time I'll sit down and watch a show is when I'm traveling. I know I'm going to be on airplanes and I got some time to myself and things like that, or in hotel rooms. I'll watch stuff. Probably the last show my wife and I used to always watch it together was however many years it was on TV. So I was probably at Carolina before, but Desperate Housewives, my wife and I used to watch that together.
Yeah.
CSI Miami. I love that one. Big Horatio Kane guy.
Yeah, there you go.
And then now, I've gotten into some shows on like Apple TV, Netflix. What did I watch? Ozark was one that I probably watched most recently. Stranger Things, Outer Banks, finishing up Ted Lasso right now.
There you go.
But that's usually just in the summertime. But my problem though, Mike, is like all these people are like sending me all these different things on like Netflix and stuff like that I need to watch. So somebody's telling me I need to watch this Steph Curry documentary. I know the quarterback thing is a big deal right now. Mm-hmm. I've got to watch that. So there's a bunch. I know Tom Brady, Derek Jeter. I love that kind of stuff. So I've literally got a list on my desk in the office of like all the different shows that I need to get into. So that's kind of where I am right now. And Yellowstone. I've never watched Yellowstone.
You haven't? I have a feeling you'll be a fan of that one.
I got to pick that one up myself. Yeah.
Nobody's watching DVDs anymore. But if you had a DVD player, what would be in there? What's like your most rewatchable movies? Because we talk a lot of rewatchable movies on this show.
Ooh, good of them. It's funny. I was in my. It's funny you said that. I was literally in my house last night, and I was going through some old drawers, just trying to clean some stuff out, and found some old DVDs of like my high school playing days as well. So I need to pop that one in and show my son.
There you go.
My football and baseball prowess back in the early '90s.
Nice.
Most rewatchable Goonies.
Okay.
Love Goonies would be on DVD. Would always be watching that
Strong.
one. Love it.
Yep.
Stand by Me. That's one that love. And I loved Goodwill Hunting when that movie came out as well. So those are
very
three
good
that would be on DVDs that I would
Yeah.
certainly could pop in and watch. And those are just those shows, if they're ever on television, I'm going to stop and watch.
It's a remote dropper. You might have given this away, but we'll let you out on this. I didn't know you played baseball. What's your number 2 sport to watch? It's the off season. There's a game on. You lean in basketball, baseball, golf. What's Shane Beamer leaning towards?
Are we saying football's number 1 to watch?
Well, yeah, that would be a given. Yeah.
All right.
What's your number 2?
Golf.
Yeah. Okay.
I just, it's kind of, there's not a lot of things that can, get you away from the office. If I'm on the golf course, I'm still, texting and things like that to a certain degree with recruits and things like that. But just love I love playing it for one, but I do enjoy watching it because I get to watch more than I actually get to play. So I do enjoy watching that if that's on television. And I'd say baseball. I always loved baseball growing up, so I will certainly watch a little bit of baseball in the summertime and kind of keep up with what's going on for sure.
Braves guy? You a Braves guy?
Yes, I got to be, living here in the Carolinas as well. Growing up, when my dad was the head coach at Murray State back in Kentucky, that was right down the road from St. Louis, Missouri. So loved the Cardinals growing up. That was like the John Tudor, Ozzie Smith, Willie McGee days. Then we moved to Virginia. And got to be a big Orioles guy because the Orioles manager at the time was a guy by the name of Johnny Oates in the early 90s. He was a classmate of my dad's at Virginia Tech. So we used to go up to Baltimore, Old Memorial Stadium, Camden Yards when it opened. Loved the Orioles, Brady Anderson, Mike Devereaux, Randy Milligan, Cal Ripken Jr., Mickey Tettleton, Greg Olson, all these guys as well. And then at that point, kind of got into living in the South, and down here, it's obviously Braves country. So went to a Phillies game back in May, but before that, the most recent baseball games I've been to was Braves games. So certainly they're hot and having a great year, and enjoy following them.
And most Orioles people didn't like it when the Nationals came, did they? They call them the Expos still.
Yeah.
How about Orioles fans still call them the Expos?
Yeah, exactly. Because that's all you heard about up in Virginia when I was growing up. I mean, that was Orioles country because there was you didn't have the Nationals and the Braves. This would have been like early 90s. So this was right before the Braves won, was it 92 World Series, I believe. So right before all that. So it was really, grew up watching the Braves on TBS but certainly you had Orioles baseball that we followed back on the old, you guys will remember this, old Home Team Sports is what it was on back growing up in high school, middle school, and elementary school with the Orioles.
Bringing me back. I did want to ask you one last thing, I promise, and that is, would it be safe to say there's a friendship with you and Steve Spurrier? I always see communication whenever you guys have it. It kind of makes a headline, and I know he was a supporter of yours when you got the job a few years ago. What is that relationship like today?
Yeah, no, it's great. He's been very supportive since I got the job. Obviously, it's a little bit unique because he's working in Gainesville and working directly with with the Gators down there. But he's been very supportive of me. He and Jerry, his wife, are fantastic, and heard from him when I got the job, and certainly I realized that this opportunity that I have here at South Carolina would not have been possible if he hadn't offered me a job back in February of 2007. So I'm, forever grateful for that. Learned so much from him during my time here at Carolina, watching him as a head coach and just trying to pick his brain, a guy that had won multiple conference championships at different schools before he got here. So yeah, there's great respect and think the world of him. And he's been nothing but complimentary and supportive of me and our program since I got the job here.
That's awesome. Well, from a couple of guys who were very supportive when your name was mentioned as the head coach of South Carolina, you're making us look pretty smart right now. But moreover, on a personal note, I'm a Shane Beamer fan, as you know, and I'm so happy for your success, and wish you the best of luck, not only this year, but for years to come, and really appreciate you carving out some time.
No, you guys are awesome. I'm a big Mike and JC fan, so thanks to you guys for your support when I was an assistant coach here and throughout the years and now as well. So I apologize for the technical difficulties. I'm not smart enough to set everything up. I had a computer glitch in my office, so had to come out here in the hallway and just loaded up on this computer. So
Hey,
apologize
you know what?
for the background or anything, but you guys are awesome, and thanks.
No, you were great.
It
There
looks
was no
great.
panic. It's like you were down 14-0 on the road, and you just still you rallied. You came from behind. You still came out a winner in this interview.
I guess so. It was like that 14-0 deficit. Certainly, I was panicking. I kept looking at the clock. I knew it was 10:30, and it was getting to be crunch time, and I wasn't on yet. So you guys
long
are
snappers
pros.
are resourceful.
Thanks for coaching me through it.
Yeah,
Thanks,
like
man.
Casey said, long snappers are resourceful. That's right. Awesome, Shane. Thank you so much, and look forward to chatting with you during the season. Take care of yourself, and best
Thanks,
of luck.
Coach.
Can't wait. You guys are awesome. Keep up the great
got it.
work.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
man.
Be great.
Thanks.
Thank you.